welcome back to Sharp Star Astro. And in this video I thought I would talk a little bit about some of the upgrades I've recently made to this setup right here. So this is my setup with the Skywatcher Star Adventure and my Canon Rebel T1i. And one of those upgrades that I said I would talk about is the modification of this camera. So I recently sent it out to be modified by Astro Gear, and it was shipped back here probably about 3 days ago, and now it is fully modified. So I had a batter mod done on it. Not a full spectrum mod, a batter mod. But yeah, that's one of the main things, one of the main upgrades I've done is modify my camera, because if you modify your camera, it just lets so much more of that HA in, because that blocking filter inside the camera body is taken out. And it's one of the main steps if you really want to get into astrophotography and interested in taking some really nice nebula shots. So that's one of the main upgrades that I made to this setup. And another upgrade is I recently got my first narrowband filter for astrophotography. So that's the Astronomic 12 nanometer HA filter. And that filter just sits right in front of the camera sensor, and it only lets in a certain wavelength of light around the 12 nanometer range. So that's like around where HA is located on the visible spectrum. It's a 12 nanometer, so it's not as good as like a 3 nanometer or a 7 nanometer filter, but it'll work just perfectly fine, and it'll enable me to image on full moon nights, because capturing broadband RGB on full moon just doesn't work. So now I'll be able to use those clear full moon nights, like hopefully tonight, if it stays clear outside, I'll be able to use my filter I just got a couple days ago, try it out with this modified DSLR. So basically, I'm going to capture just a separate set of images with the HA filter in, then I'll process those to get a mono image, just H-alpha image with an increased signal in HA, and then I'll combine that with RGB data from my modified DSLR camera to make an HA RGB composite image. Those images really have an increased HA signal, and really adding an HA data set to your RGB can really make a difference in the amount of signal and detail you see in your images, especially in nebula with a lot of HA details. Those are the two main upgrades I wanted to talk to you about, and now let's go a little deeper into the filter. So here is the filter. As I already said, it's an Astronomic 12 nanometer filter. It's for APS-C size sensors, so they do make another one of these filters for full frame sensors, but I have a crop sensor DSLR, so I got the APS-C size filter, and these are the most common ones, really easy to find, and it cost about $180, so really affordable filter. The other thing is that this filter, you can use it, since it's a clip-in filter, it sits right in front of the sensor, you can use it with your lenses, so that makes a really big difference to be able to use it with lenses that you can just attach. So you can use it with only Canon EF lenses. So if you have a Canon EFS lens, like the 18 through 55 millimeter kit lens, that just sits too far inside the camera body and it'll run into the filter. Unfortunately, my Canon 75 through 300 millimeter lens right there is an EF lens, so it is compatible with this filter. Other lenses that are compatible with it I know are the Nifty 50 lens, 50 millimeter f1.4, and then the 135 millimeter Rokinon lens is also compatible with. That's another lens that's on my list as well, because that would really be an upgrade from this 75 to 300 millimeter zoom lens. So this filter, it'll work with any EF lens and just sits right in front of the camera sensor, and just a really good overall H-alpha filter if you want to get started into narrowband imaging. So another important thing to note about this filter is that since it's only letting in light around 12 nanometers, it's 12 nanometer HA filter, it's really good if you're imaging during full moon nights, because it blocks out all that moonlight as well as light pollution. So as I said, if you have a 3 nanometer or 7 nanometer filters, those will do a better job at blocking out light pollution and moonlight. But where I live in Bordeaux 4, there's not that much light pollution. Just mainly my purpose for this filter was to be able to image on moonlit nights. That'll really help with that. And another thing to remember is when you're using a narrowband filter like one of these, especially with your DSLR, it's going to be very hard to locate targets. It's going to be not very hard, but probably more difficult to locate deep sky objects, because since it's only letting in small wavelength of light, you're only going to be able to see the brightest stars in your display screen. So you're probably going to want to focus up on either the moon or like a planet or a really bright star, then move to your target. And it can be also challenging to find your target, so you'll probably have to take some test exposures before you get centered, but just it probably will be a little more difficult to locate targets with a narrowband filter. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my second upgrade which I made to this setup, and that is the modification of my Canon Rebel T1i. So I sent that out to Astro Gear to do modification on it, and the mod that I got done for it was a batter mod. So that is usually the least expensive mod on their selection of modifications, but despite it being the least expensive modification, it still performs at the same level as some of the other more expensive modifications. There's really not much of a difference compared to like let's say a full spectrum mod. But let me go into a little more detail about the batter modification that I had done. So basically, in a camera body like this one, there's the LPF1 filter and the LPF2. So in a batter mod, what they do is they retain the LPF1 filter and take out the LPF2 filter. So all modifications, you take out the LPF2 filter because that's the UV IR blocking filter that keeps HA light from entering the camera sensor. So that was removed and the LPF1 was retained. So that is basically what a batter mod is, and I won't go into detail about the other mods because I don't know too much about those. Just got the batter mod done on this camera right here. So that's the modification I got done, and so far it seems like I only went out once with it on when the full moon was out with no filter. So I just got to test it out a little bit, but hopefully tonight I'll be able to test it out a lot more with my new narrowband HA filter that I just got. So hopefully tonight it will stay clear. So far it's a crystal clear day and it calls for clear skies all night tonight. So that'll be good for me to test out these two new upgrades that I've been talking about in today's video. So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you learned a little something here. So hopefully tonight it will stay clear and I'll be able to capture some images with my new HA filter and my modified DSLR. So hopefully you enjoy the image at the end of the video, and until next time, clear skies.